Did you do it?
No.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's 4 o'clock, and I will call this meeting to order. Laura, would you start us with our roll call attendance, please?
Yes. Heather Berry,
Here.
Nolan Jacket,
Here.
Tracy Hennis,
Here.
Don Pridemore,
Here.
Craig Westfall.
Here.
Tracy, if I could just jump in quickly, just for clarification, per our policy 0164, Tracy, as the board president, did authorize Don's virtual participation this evening, based upon a request from Don that a medical issue was preventing him from physically attending. So we do appreciate that we were able to make happen that he's able to join us virtually. Again, per that same policy, that also remains his ability to vote as a member of the board. So I just wanted to offer that clarity.
Thank you, Mr. Walters. Next on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Would everyone please rise and face the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
United States of America. To the republic. One nation under God, indivisible.
Thank you. Board members, is there a motion to adopt the agenda for the meeting?
So moved.
Motion by Nolan Jacket. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Heather Berry. Any discussion about
Second.
We have a second by Heather Berry. Thank you, Don. Any discussion about the agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor of proceeding with the agenda as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say nay. The motion carries.
Aye.
Thank you. Next is our public comment section. Laura, did we have anyone sign up to address the board this evening? We did not. Next on our agenda is the unanimous consent agenda, which includes our meeting minutes from July 22nd and approval of personnel recommendations. Is there a motion on the unanimous consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second? I'll second it. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. And the motion carries.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Pridemore. Next is our items for discussion and possible action, starting with our approval of the initial resolution authorizing general obligation bonds in the amount not to exceed $25.8 million. And I will let Mr. Walters head up this conversation.
Thank you, Tracy. Just a couple of reminders. Again, Ms. Cravey gave us a mic check reminder. Just make sure we're speaking into the microphone. I know last month's recording was not up to par as far as the volume and the clarity of the sound. So if you can just focus on that. And then, in all honesty, you can tell already, but when we're speaking, maybe just give a little bit extra pause. There certainly seems to be a delay. So let's make sure we give Mr. Pridemore the opportunity to engage in the conversation virtually. With that, as we jump into the first resolution to be discussed and considered this evening, I just want to take a moment again to thank those members of our Citizens Facilities Advisory Committee, as well as our board members who have worked and collaborated here in recent months. That brings us here today to talk about these two resolutions. McCoy, if you could bring up the plans and the budget attachment from item 4A. I just wanted to briefly go through what those who attended last month's workshop saw, and most of it is exactly the same. So again, and you can just scroll through the maps, McCoy, but the first one shows the roofing replacement detail in regards to which sections of our building would be addressed, which are highlighted in the two yellow and orange colored areas of our building. The second one addresses the HVAC replacement identification plan, which again includes rooftop units, which we have over 60 of those units on top of our building, and then all of our main air handlers, which date back to the late 1960s. So again, those air handlers are referenced in the AHUs, and the rooftop units are referenced in the RTUs. The next one then is the HVAC general construction. Again, those green colored boxes are again the areas where those air handlers would be, so there certainly needs to be some consideration, as was discussed last week. Ironically, later, 50 years after those units were put in, those units are actually bigger than they were over 50 years ago, which is interesting, based upon how things have become smaller. But I guess, cell phones have gone from big to small back to bigger, so maybe it makes sense. The lighting replacement identification, again, all the areas in the yellow-green are areas that have not been replaced with LED lighting, and the challenges to that in regards to finding replacements and things like that, as we discussed at last week's workshop. The next slide then is the recommended learning space for our tech ed expansion. Again, that currently is a row of parking spots. It certainly would impact our student parking lot, but again, based upon what might have been seen a couple of months back, that is something close to 8,000 additional square feet for a learning space to impact the academic experiences for our students taking CTE coursework. The next slide, again, is just a little bit more specific diagram in regards to, where you'll see an egress or a hallway to get out of the building with that addition. The next slide, then, again, is the toilet room renovations. Again, those are the two of those main areas. One on the second floor is our most outdated restrooms, in addition to those stalls on the edge of our staff lounge. And then the green boxes to the way left of this document indicates restroom area that previously had served some of our students with disabilities. Actually, at times it still does, but Bray believes they could turn that into a more usable space for all students. Slide 8 then in that presentation talks about the asbestos abatement. Again, most of the work then would be done to remove the asbestos from our building if the work was supported to move forward with those orange highlighted areas. And then you see the budget analysis, and the only slight change that was made since the workshop last week is Matt from Bray went and made some adjustments to the numbers, which moved us to a number just less than $26 million. So that's why the ask is $25,800,000 to be considered through the resolutions today, rather than the number that was seen last week, which is just over 26. Again, the tool of board docs is super helpful. Again, if you're interested in going back and seeing where those adjustments were made, it is certainly available as an attachment. But he got some clearer numbers on a couple of items, and then other items were adjusted the other direction to that resulted in that reduction of over $200,000. Okay, and then the remaining part of this document is all the breakdown of how we got to that 25.8 million. Okay. Any questions so far on that? Again, we discussed it as a group last week. The other document, McCoy, if you can bring up the tax impact. This is a document that our friends at Baird had prepared, and it shows at that the other one, please, McCoy. So thank you. This is the tax impact that we had shared previously as well. Our friends from Baird prepared this. Again, you will see the monthly impact if the board were to approve the resolutions to go to 25.8 million. Okay, that's going to fall somewhere between a monthly impact of $11 a month or $11.25 for a $300,000 property in our district. And then the last document as part of this item would be the actual resolution itself, and that's a document you had up before, McCoy. And I want to clarify for those people who have not been involved in conversations around referendum language. I mentioned there was 2 resolutions. The first resolution is the one that approves the bonds, the cost, and the way in which the dollars would be expended. And then the second resolution, which we would get to next, would be the resolution that would approve taking it to the electors for approval or rejection on November 5th. So at this point in time, we're focused on this resolution in front of you, which, again, we saw a draft of last week at the workshop. With that, I will open it up for conversation and discussion amongst the board.
Do any board members have any questions, and do we need to be concerned about what's on the screen up there or not? Okay, just want to make
Don,
sure.
can you still hear us?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Any questions from any board members?
Yeah, I guess I'll ask one last thing here. How important is it for us to replace the roofing that is still considered to be in fair condition, that still has a number of years left on its life expectancy?
I'll let our buildings and grounds supervisor, Ms. Peterson, speak about that.
It's usually on the top somewhere, I'm pretty sure, Tracy. Kind of like where your right index
McCoy,
finger is, maybe.
Sorry, Tracy. McCoy, while you're waiting, if you want to bring back the map of roofing, that'd be outstanding.
Is Donna in the meeting?
Don is in the meeting. Correct, Don?
Yes, I'm here.
Great, thank you.
Why doesn't he have his camera on?
Oops,
McCoy, if you can keep scrolling to the roofing.
we have a microphone issue just for a moment here.
2 more up.
So the roofing replacements, if you wanted to scroll to that screen, McCoy. We're talking roofing, not rooftop units, correct?
Yeah.
So those are due for replacement in 10 years or less. Some of them are at 5 years, some, anywhere between there. And the thought process behind this would be that once we are up there, if we are replacing the rooftop units that are in these areas, we should also replace the roofing at the same time. There's cost savings with that. And also with the curbing for the rooftop units, it would make sense to replace the roofing at that time. And to get this done in one fell swoop would also provide a lot of cost savings to the district.
Thank you.
And the only thing I'll point out is the gray areas, right? Those are still the items that would remain that are not covered through this. So those certainly hopefully would be built into some future capital project work that Ms. Peterson will lead up.
Thank you. Any more questions from board? This discussion, would a board member like to make a motion to approve the initial resolution authorizing general obligation bonds in the amount not to exceed $25.8 million? And Mr. Walters, do we need to read the resolution that is in our packet?
I think that would be helpful. And if McCoy, you could bring up that resolution one more time. And while you're doing that, we should double check Mr. Pridemore is still available.
Mr. Pridemore, are you still there?
I'm still here.
Okay, great. Are you good, or did you have a question for Mr. Walters?
Oh, the only problem I have on this end is that sometimes the audio cuts out and then cuts back in, and I miss, what happened in between. But I'll deal with it.
Okay. So just to be clear, we did go over the documents included with the item under 4A on the agenda, which pertains to the initial resolution authorizing general obligation bonds. And so we are now at the point where we're reviewing the actual drafted resolution. Should I go ahead and state it?
Yeah, Tracy's going to go ahead and read the resolution, Don.
So the resolution is stated as such. This is an initial resolution authorizing general obligation bonds in an amount not to exceed $25.8 million. Be it resolved by the School Board of the Hartford Union High School District, Washington and Dodge Counties, Wisconsin, that there shall be issued pursuant to Chapter 67 of Wisconsin statutes, general obligation bonds in an amount not to exceed $25.8 million for the public purpose of paying the cost of a school building and facility improvement project consisting of renovations, building infrastructure including pool updates, safety, security, and accessibility improvements, construction of an addition for technical education space, outdoor physical education and athletic facility improvements, including to replace the track and to install a turf field, site improvements, and acquisition of furnishings, fixture, and equipment.
Thank you, Tracy. And the only other thing I would add is I'm proud of the group who has been part of this journey. Again, just as a reminder for maybe new people to the conversation, this journey started with a facility audit, a community survey to gather feedback, the forming of our Citizens Advisory Committee, them prioritizing after many conversations and hours, and then ultimately the board workshop last week. So again, the journey's taken us here to this point. Where ultimately at this point in time we'd be looking for a board member to make a motion to approve this first resolution.
Is there a board member who would like to make that motion? I will go ahead and make the motion to approve the initial resolution authorizing general obligation bonds in the amount not to exceed $25.8 million as presented in the drafted resolution. Is there a second?
I will second it.
We have a second by Heather Berry. Is there any further discussion by board members? Mr. Westfall?
I've been reached out by multiple community members about what behind the school is going to look like. They have concerns of it impacting their property. So I'd just like to note that there are people concerned about what the back of the school is going to look like.
Okay. Mr. Walters or any other staff have anything to say regarding that concern or question at this time? Okay. Hearing none, that is something that I'm sure will be kept in mind for the future. Any further conversation? Okay, let's put it to a vote. This is a roll call vote, so we'll start with myself. Aye. Nolan?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
Heather?
Aye.
Craig? And that motion carries. Next on the agenda is a discussion for the approval of resolution for a referendum election on the question of the approval of initial resolution authorizing the issuance of general obligation bonds in an amount not to exceed $25.8 million.
Yeah, I mentioned the community survey previously, and as McCoy pulls up this resolution, I'd be remiss if I don't remind everybody that those results showed that 62% of our respondents voted in voice support for a referendum in the ballpark of $25 million. The really neat thing about that is about 70% of those respondents were not parents of Hartford Union High School students currently, and certainly represented folks from across our 225 square miles. This resolution, as I explained before, is the second resolution that takes the one that was just approved forward to the electors for their consideration on the ballot on November 5th, 2024.
So just for clarity, what's going to be on the ballot? The previous motion? As far as language?
That is correct. That language is what appears.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear.
And for further clarity, I appreciate that opportunity, Craig. I think that's why it's important in that language. It speaks about some of those specific items, so the district has the opportunity to invest in those areas, not to exceed $25.8 million.
Jeff, I think also if you go further down this document, it gives sample ballots, what the ballot question will look like.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. If you could scroll, I want to say page 8 or 9, McCoy.
Oh, yeah, now I remember seeing that.
Right.
Okay.
Yep, right there is good. Yep, there's the language right there. Again, the specifics at the bottom of that question, and that's the exact wording of the resolution that Tracy just read.
Do any board members have any questions regarding what we are seeing in the packet and up on the screen right now? Heather?
I just have right at the bottom there, done in Hartford Union High School District on November 2nd, 2024. Is that, because put my name there, I wasn't even on the board then.
Yep, so the district clerk,
I am on the board. Sorry,
the district clerk,
the date.
McCoy, if you scroll up to the first page again, you've got like big time responsibilities, Miss Berry.
No, my question was November 2nd. Is November 2nd, is that a particular date?
So yes, so that is a important date. That's 3 days prior to the election.
3 days. Okay,
that needs to be the date that the final notification occurs. Okay, so if you read McCoy, if you scroll up to the first page, but that's a good question and a good catch on why November 2nd is really important. That's the last notification, not the first notification. Okay, and then in that second paragraph, notice that it is in the best interest of the district to direct the district clerk to submit the initial resolution. So that is why your name appears, because as the clerk of the board, you are submitting this resolution to go forward on behalf of the board.
That's what I meant with the date.
Notification date.
Okay.
That has to happen. So like I said, August 25th, October 8th,
and November
2nd. Okay. Those are all benchmarks that, not to put the pressure on Ms. Trapp, but again, her working with Allison Buchanan from Quarles and Brady, those are the dates that have to be met.
Okay, thank you.
Don or Nolan, do you have any questions?
I do not.
Don, do you have a question?
No.
Okay, thank you.
No.
Any further discussion from the board? Mr. Walters, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Were you going to say something?
Other than you will see a significant number of similar language across the state and in our area. So if you pick up the newspaper or other things in the next 75 to 80 days, you will see this language appear very similar in other districts who are doing the same thing as you're considering tonight.
Thank you. So we have had a discussion about 4B, the approval of the resolution for a referendum election on the question of approval of an initial resolution authorizing issuance of general obligation bonds in an amount not to exceed $25.8 million per the document in our packet. Is there a board member who would like to make a motion? I'll go ahead and make a motion for the approval of resolution for a referendum election on the question of the approval of an initial resolution authorizing the issuance of general obligation bonds in an amount not to exceed $25.8 million. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Heather Berry. Any further discussion? I would like to say that I personally feel that it's a good thing to put this decision in the hands of the voters and let them tell us what they would like to be done. Any discussion from any other board members? Okay, hearing none, let's put it to a roll call vote. This time we'll start with Nolan.
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
Heather?
Aye.
Craig?
Aye.
And myself, aye. And that motion carries. That has been approved. Next on the agenda is a discussion regarding the initially scheduled board workshop to be held on August 15th. We have made some adjustments this month, so thank you to the board members and everybody who participated to help us get things done in a timely manner. It's really appreciated. We've made a lot of adjustments, and from my perspective, I don't know of a topic that would be necessary to hold the workshop on August 15th. Is there any other discussion from any other board members?
I would only say that August 15th would conflict with another commitment of mine, so I'm hoping we will not have it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pridemore.
And I would just jump in and quickly and say I also appreciate the commitment of the board to make these things happen. Again, the workshop that we did with our facilities committee, the special board meeting tonight, it's not easy to reschedule your personal commitments or professional commitments to make these things happen and support of students and staff. So I do appreciate what you've done, and I think that certainly then justifies why August 15th is no longer necessary.
Thank you, Mr. Walters.
I would like to motion to approve the cancellation of the scheduled August 15th board workshop.
I'll go ahead
I'll
and second
second.
that. We'll let Don second it. Thank you, Don. Any further discussion? All those in favor of canceling the August 15th board workshop signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay.
Aye.
Thank you. That motion carries unanimously. Future dates to be aware of for our board members. August 26th is our next regular school board meeting. September 19th, we have scheduled a board workshop. And then September 30th will be our regular school board meeting in the month of September.
And I would encourage the board to think about prior to August 26th. Our practice has been that we determine if the necessary items are available for the following workshop. So again, as you can see, the